Welcome to the Social Confidence Mastery Podcast, the number one resource for engineers, programmers, and developers to improve their social confidence. I'm your host, Mike Macapinlac, and I want to thank you for being here. If you're shy and technically skilled and you want to know how to approach and talk to anybody, remember to download your free social confidence cheat sheet by going to socialconfidencemastery.com. All right, let's get into today's episode. Hey guys, today I'm joined by Rob Riker, founder of The Social Winner, where he helps people create amazing relationships and build a social circle of truly great friends. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Mike, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So for everyone here who is not familiar with you and they're hearing about you for the first time, just real quick, tell us your story and how did you get started into what you do?
Sure. So growing up, I always thought that my social skills were not bad. I was getting along great. I had friends growing up from elementary school through high school, through sports and school. And so for hobbies like skateboarding and surfing, I had friends to go with me. And I had a generally good life. And then in college, I was in a fraternity and made plenty of friends there. And so I didn't really think that I had any issues. But after I graduated college, my job took me to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I was actually really excited because I didn't know anyone there. And it gave me a chance to start my life over and build a brand new social circle and build this life from the ground up. So I was excited. And after I got there, about a month in, that all changed. I became really lonely. I didn't meet a single soul. And, I started getting that negative self-talk where I was like, man, am I a loser? Am I never going to be able to make friends? And that's when reality struck. And it was bad. It was really bad, but I didn't quit. And I did do a lot to learn how to make new friends. I read books. I practiced. I did a bunch of things. And fortunately, in the next few months, I met new people and built an awesome social circle with great new friends, some of which are my best friends today. And for the next few years after that, I started noticing more and more people who had the same problem I had, which is being able to make friends as an adult out in the real world. So I started looking at what specifically I was doing to find success. And it didn't take long for me to realize that a really good process that I used. And I reached out to a few people. I offered to help them. And when they were able to find similar success that I had, I was onto something. And that's when I started The Social Winner.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it's very similar to my story, but just to keep it brief, moved to Canada from the Philippines, and then my first few years in a brand new country was a huge struggle because I didn't know anybody, and it's not like it's one of these things that like you don't really learn in school or from your parents, right? You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are friends by default based on the environment that they were in. So like in a specific city, or like in a specific or back in school, like the activities in like in their university kind of made it easier for them to make friends. But then as soon as either people graduate from school or they move to a new city, either that or like they have a job where it's very demanding of their time, like as we become older, it's a lot difficult to make friends because we don't have that same convenience as before. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's awesome. So besides those things that I mentioned, like, is there anything else that I may have missed? Like from your perspective, why do you think it's so hard to make friends as adults?
Well, there's a few things that really go into building a friendship. Mm-hmm. You have to spend time with people. A lot of people downplay this or don't think about it, but building a relationship takes a lot of time, and you have to put that time and effort in. Mm-hmm. Second, you have to relate with people, and that's generally with similarities. Like people like themselves, mm-hmm. and it's very true. Like you can have differences with other people, but you have to find these similarities these common goals, beliefs, values, etc. If you don't do that, it's going to be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And you need people to feel good around you. They need to enjoy being around you, and like the opposite of being a Debbie Downer, right?
Yeah.
And so what people do is they don't go to the right places to find people. They don't put in the time or effort to meet people, or they just don't know what to do, because there are a lot of little things that if you don't do, it's going to make it really difficult.
I love that. There's one thing you said there that I just want to put a lot of emphasis on, and this has been like an ongoing issue with a lot of the guys that I've worked with in my social skills coaching program. So a lot of them have this goal of having a magnetic personality, right? And, very similar to what you said, it's hard to be attractive to people. It's hard to have people in your life who enjoy your company if you don't feel good about yourself. Because if you think about it, like I'm sure you've been around someone who's angry or like mad or sad, right? Like when you're around those kind of people, like unknowingly they bring the mood down. So I think from my perspective, one of the best ways, or one of the best things that people can learn to become more magnetic to other people is to be able to manage their emotions. Don't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And it all comes down to your mindset on life.
Yeah.
If you're excited to be alive, if you're stoked on the day, if you love life, and you come into a conversation or a relationship with that attitude, it just sucks people in. People love it.
For sure. And another, and to build on top of what you said, something that I recommend to all my coaching clients is to have a daily practice of meditation and gratitude, because I feel like, at least for me, when I started meditating many, many years ago, I'm not, I'm still very susceptible to negative thoughts. The only difference between me now and me back in the day is that I get out of that negative thought pattern quicker. And also with gratitude, my life's not perfect. There's definitely things that, could be better or whatever. But then there's also a lot of things that are going on in my life, right? And because I make a conscious effort to focus on what's going well for me instead of complaining, then I'm able to manage my thoughts. And, kind of like what we've been talking about, it's easier for me to attract people because I'm in a good headspace for the most part.
Yeah, 100%. The thing you hit on that I completely agree with there is the practice of gratitude. I mean, most people in the world today have it so easy. I don't want to say easy because that downplays their struggles and stuff, but we have good lives compared to 99% of the world and 99.99% of the people who lived before us. We have comfort and security and food and shelter and clothes and iPhones, and we forget to be grateful for what we do have and focus on what we don't have, and that becomes a problem because, again, you're thinking of all the negative things, you're not appreciating life. And when I started being thankful for life, being excited just to be alive, have the opportunity to be who I want and enjoy the day, that's when things really started turning around for me.
That's awesome. I love that. So, Rob, as far as, one of the biggest things that I've noticed with my coaching clients, since a lot of them work as engineers, programmers, and developers, two things. Number one, they have a hard time telling good stories. They're very they're in a logical headspace a lot. So, their conversations aren't really super, or the way they tell their stories aren't super dynamic. And number two, they have a hard time opening up. They're afraid to be open and vulnerable. Do you have any thoughts and ideas on how these types of people can become better storytellers and how they can become more open and vulnerable?
So for stories, I think it's important to live a life you truly love. And a lot of these people, I'm sure they enjoy their job or they love it, but outside of their job, I think it's important to find and experience new things and other hobbies, because the best way to become an interesting person is to live an interesting life.
So true.
And the most interesting life, and it isn't just doing cool things or this or that, it's experiencing new things. It's putting yourself in hardships or things that are difficult for you and things that don't always work out but provide you stories, right?
Yeah.
If you do the same thing day in and day out, it gets repetitive and it doesn't give you new stories. So I like with my clients, I really like to preach. I like to get them to do new things. You know, it's like join a class, join a sports team, go explore a new part of the city you've never been to, go do something new, especially if it puts you out of your comfort zone. Because one of a few things is going to happen. A, you're going to have a great time that you never would have had. Or B, it may not go the way you plan, but then it gives you a great story to tell later in your life, and you probably learn something new from it.
I love that. That's awesome. I do have something to add on top of that, but I'm going to hold off on that because I want you to go over your tips on how to be more open and vulnerable.
Yeah, so being more open and vulnerable is, as cheesy as it sounds, is a matter of doing it. And I mean, that's like a lot of things in life, right? It's like the best way to get good at something is to do it, but it's not always easy enough to just go and be extremely vulnerable. So take small steps, you know, like when you're in conversation with someone, the best thing I like to do is ask good questions of other people, and that'll kind of force you to answer those same or similar questions. So if you ask someone about like, hey, do you have any brothers or sisters? And then once they respond, they'll either ask you or you can open up because you just asked them about it. So that's a pretty natural thing to do.
Yeah.
And you slowly, gradually ask deeper and deeper questions that either ask them about their personal life, things that motivate them, or emotions they feel during different situations. And by asking deeper questions, it's easier for you to open up about those same things.
I love that. You said so many things that I totally resonate with. So one thing that I want to add when it comes to storytelling, and I love that you touched on this, you know, because, you know, let's be honest, right? If your typical day is just going to work, going home, watching Netflix and hanging out with the same people every week, you know, it's going to be very hard to become an interesting conversationalist if you don't have a lot of interesting things going on for you. So I love that you encourage people to, you know, be spontaneous, try new things, stuff like that, because, you know, A, not only is your life going to be more exciting, B, you're totally going to have more things to talk about, which, you know, you said earlier, which is so true. And number three, one thing to add to, you know, like when people are telling stories, one thing, one advice that I give to my coaching clients that they've found helpful is, you know, adding an emotional component to their stories, right? So just, you know, let's say let's say you tried paintballing for the first time. So like you went to this place, it was at this time, there were, you know, so many people there, whatever. But then when you talk to someone who has never done paintballing before, it could be isolating. So by adding things like, you know, like describing how things made you feel, then your story becomes a lot more relatable, right? Because, you know, there's two ways to relate. One's through logic. So if the person you're talking to is, you know, they've experienced the same thing, so that's awesome. But what if they haven't, right? So then another way to relate is through emotion. So by talking about how things made you feel, so then with the other person, even though they haven't done the same thing, they can usually find a similar experience, where they've felt something similar. You know what I mean?
100%. I mean, that's exactly what I tell people too. It's like and even when you're not talking about stories per se, but just in regular conversation, I have a technique called the few steps process. And it's like, first you find a fact, that's the F. Then you find an emotion, that's the E. And then you find out why they felt that emotion, that's the W.
Great. Yeah.
So, and it really opens people up because it's like, oh, what do you do? I'm a designer. Okay, well, that's not much of a conversation. So find an emotion about it. It's like, oh, how do you like your job? Oh, I love my job. Okay, well, it still didn't get them to open up. But then you find out why. It's like, what do you like about your job so much? And that's usually when people open floodgates.
That's awesome. I love that. So, Rob, I'm totally curious, you know, like I love the advice you gave too about openness and vulnerability. And, you know, just to kind of add to what you said, I think it's great to just like start small with like, you know, like sharing a small secret about yourself, right? And then seeing how the other person responds. I want to take your thoughts on that. You know, like how do you know when someone is oversharing in conversation?
It's all about reading the other person
Mm-hmm.
and it their body language. When people are communicating, their bodies typically don't lie, even if
Yeah.
their words do. Um, so if they're facing you, that's a good sign if they're open up to you. But more importantly, check their face and their facial expressions. If they're like,
Mm.
if they have like the curious eyebrows, like, oh, really? That's a
Mm.
good sign. If they have the kind of rolling their eyes to the back of their head,
Yeah.
which sounds ridiculous, but people do a small version of that when they're getting annoyed, and people just don't read into it and don't realize it, so they keep sharing. And it's like if the person's kind of looking out of the corner of his eyes, like waiting for you to stop or something, that's a good signal that you're oversharing.
Gotcha. I love that. That makes sense. So, Rob, you mentioned earlier that like a lot of people make the mistake of going to the wrong places to make friends and to meet people. Where do you recommend people go to build a social circle of like-minded people?
So this is one of the biggest topics that I help coach people through, and it's because people go to the wrong places. And so I recommend that they go to what I call consistent social groups. And a consistent social group is any type of group where the same people meet consistently on a regular basis, uh, and then you're doing something you enjoy or something that you possibly could enjoy if you've never done it. And during those in those meetups, you're interacting with other people. So examples of this could be an adult league sports team, a book club, a class learning, a class where you're learning something, like a photography class or an improv class. And so these places, there's a lot of good things in here that these groups force and help you build relationships with other people. So you're spending a lot of time with people. It's not like going to one meetup or one conference where you see people once and then they're gone. You see them regularly, and the more you see them, the more opportunity you get to build a relationship with them. You're doing something you enjoy, so you're having a good time, the other person's having a good time, and they're going to relate those good emotions with you. So that's a much better opportunity to build a relationship with someone. And you're forced to interact with them. Like on a sports team, you have to work with them to accomplish a similar goal. You want to score on the other team or whatever. Or in a book club, you have to give your thoughts on the book, and you have to ask people questions, and so you're forced to interact with people. So even without having any conversations or anything, these groups just by themselves help you build these relationships.
I love that. That's awesome. One of the things that I always tell my client is that mutual interest is the foundation of every great relationship. Kind of like what you said, it's so much easier to spend time with someone who likes the same things as you. And also, as far as conversation goes, like if you're meeting someone while you're doing something something you enjoy, like the conversation is gonna flow, right? Because naturally, the environment that you pick to socialize will have a lot of built-in connections, which makes like starting and maintaining a conversation so much easier, and the whole thing just feels more effortless, right? Compared to especially if you're an introvert or you're socially inexperienced, right? Like going to a place like a bar or a nightclub, it's so overwhelming, and I think that's the mistake that I see a lot of people commit to. It's kind of like like you don't know how to swim, and instead of like starting at the shallow end of the pool first to get some experience and confidence, a lot of people jump into the deep end of the pool and they end up drowning, right? And I think a lot of people approach meeting people like that too. Like they do the hardest thing right away, and they're wondering why they're not getting any success, and because they're not seeing success, they feel frustrated, and then they beat themselves up, and it's a negative cycle that happens over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't agree more. And it's also that people, they're going to places that they don't even enjoy. Like
Yes.
you're saying, bars and clubs and stuff are more difficult than the other. On top of being more difficult, they may not even enjoy it. And if they're not having a good time there, then they're really shooting themselves in the foot.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. So, Rob, I wanted to ask you, and this is just like out of curiosity. So, you're going out, you're meeting people, you're turning strangers into friends and stuff like that. How do you know when someone has reached the best friend level? I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
The best friend level. That's interesting. I mean, a best friend is someone who wants to be around you more. It's like a friend is someone who likes having you around. If they see you, they're happy. A best friend, they love it when you're in their presence. They trust you with anything and everything, sometimes even more than their spouse or their significant other or their family members. So they consider you a brother or stuff like that. So I think trust is a really big one. And the trust comes because you're aligned with your most important values, like your deepest principles and values in life align very well. And so and then you've built that trust over time. So the combination of those two things create a best friend.
I love that. No, I absolutely agree with everything you said. And from my perspective, I think that's when vulnerability comes into play, because from my experience, like I have a handful of people that I consider my best friends. Even though we haven't known each other for that long, every time we interact and we have a conversation, it's always like deep and meaningful. They're always open to engage, and they're not holding anything back. I feel safe when I talk to them. I feel like I can talk to them about anything and everything, and vice versa. Like like when you hear people talk, they're like, "Hey, how are you? Good, how are you?" It's like there's no substance there, where you're just exchanging words. You're not even communicating. So I feel like openness and vulnerability, and just being a good listener, and being and really trying to understand. I feel like when I feel understood and I feel heard, and I'm able to open up, and the other person's doing the same, I feel like that can really fast track the relationship, which could turn a friendship into best friend status. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you said it well, and I'll change the words just slightly. It's when someone gets you, right?
Yes,
like
yes.
Someone understands you and stuff. It's like, it's just when they get you, that's a best friend quality, because they listen, they understand, and they just get it. Like, some people, you can tell them your deepest thoughts, like how being an entrepreneur is really important to you. Like you just don't want to work for someone else, and they'll be like, what's the difference? Like, they just don't understand why that's so, even though you tell them, like, you explain everything. Yeah. And then this other person, your best friend, you tell them, and they're like, even if that's not important to them, they just get it. They're like, man, I feel you. Like, I can see how, like, it's stressful to work for someone else, and your time isn't yours. You're stuck to working when they want you to work. Like, and when they get you, that is just an important quality, especially with the things that are really important to you.
Exactly, which comes back to what you said before. That's why it's so important to make friends while doing something you enjoy, right? Because when you go to the right places, you stack the odds and you increase the probability that you're going to meet someone like-minded because you're doing something that you like.
That's exactly right. I mean, if you love mountain biking and that's your favorite activity, that's probably going to be pretty important to you. And if you find a group of guys that like to mountain bike and you start going with them, and they take you to new spots and you take them to new spots, you're likely going to bond, because you're having a great time and sharing great emotions with them and doing, like, exploring and new experiences. But then you also have this shared bond over your similar interest of mountain biking.
So true. I love that. Rob, you said earlier in our conversation that you read some books that help you out. Can you recommend some books that you think our listeners today would find helpful as far as making friends and building a social circle is concerned?
So I don't have any books specifically on those topics. I'm sure they exist, but at the moment I can't think of any that really help in this regard. Except for, I'll give you one. It's called what's it called? Play It Away by Charlie Hone, and it's all about basically having fun with everything you do in life, and how he used to be super serious about work and life and this and that. And it made him depressed and anxious, and he hated life. And then he started just turning everything into more fun, where it's like, hey, instead of getting a coffee, let's go throw the baseball around. And so that's a great book on just enjoying life more and getting out and doing new things. But there are three books that helped me change for the better throughout my life. And the first one was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that's just because it helped me learn that I can change the way I think and see the world. It was a huge paradigm shift in the way my mind worked.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read The Game, which most people have read on dating and stuff, and the pickup artist world. And what that taught me, regardless of dating and everything, is that your social skills can be learned.
Yes.
And that's really put me on the path of this in this direction. So I learned a lot of what I know from reading that, and then all the psychology and books I read after that. And the third one is Yes Man, which is a book about a guy. His life was getting really bad. His girlfriend dumped him, and he just stayed inside, didn't do anything. And to change all that, he decided to say yes to every single thing possible. And he ends up doing a ton of crazy stuff because he just says yes to people when he normally would obviously say no. Mm-hmm. And the change in his life of doing that for a year is insane. And the stories, the things it took him on are crazy. And that actually is what helped me in Santa Fe go from not having any friends to having a ton, because I just started saying yes to everything. And I met a ton of new people in the most weird situations.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, Rob, you've given a lot of great value in this conversation. I'm sure a lot of our listeners would want to find out more about you and the work that you do. And if that's the case, what's the best way for them to keep in touch with you?
So they can find me at my website, thesocialwinner.com. And on there, they can learn everything they need to learn and see whatever they want to see. They can also pick up my free ebook, Making New Friends the Easy Way. It's an 8 short chapter ebook that helps them build a social circle of people they love. They can get that just by going to the website. They'll see it right there on the front page.
That's awesome. Rob, thanks again. It was great to meet you, and I appreciate you being so open and sharing the great tips. And I look forward to connecting soon.
Mike, I had a blast. Thank you so much for having me on. I'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found it valuable, make sure you take a screenshot, post it, and tag me on Instagram at Social Confidence Mastery. Remember to leave a review as well to help the show reach more people, and feel free to share it with someone who you know who could benefit from it. All right, that's it for me for now, and I'll talk to you very soon.